keeping the orange team united. A trade talk update and questions about relief at the pumps. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Getting to know Avi. It's been about 48 hours since the NDP elected its new leader. And Avi Lewis is already facing questions about how he's going to keep the struggling federal NDP united. Lewis had barely finished his victory speech when the leaders of the Alberta NDP and the Saskatchewan NDP said they don't support him or his policies. At a news conference in Winnipeg, Lewis had nothing but nice things to say about Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi and Carla Beck of the NDP in Saskatchewan.
I cannot wait for Carla to be the Premier of Saskatchewan. We desperately need relief from the Scott Moe government and its cruelty towards workers and its next to Alberta, one of the most regressive governments in Canada. And I've told Naheed, and I've said many times, that I cannot wait for him to be Premier of Alberta. We fully support those provincial sections. Whatever ruffles in the family, my door is open and my hand outstretched to Carla to talk when she's ready. I do believe that hard conversations are necessary. I'm a person who actually welcomes them. I think that we need to have them. And as Wob said, we don't have to agree on every little thing in order to do big things together. So I can't wait to do big things on housing, on healthcare, and on the cost of living with Carla and Naheed and all of the provincial sections across the country.
If there's one big Avi Lewis booster, it is Wob Kinew, the Premier of Manitoba. Lewis shared that the two have had long conversations, but he said they don't agree on energy policy.
You know, there's a question of energy development, and it may be that if the port in the north, whether it's Churchill or somewhere else, ends up being the destination for more oil and gas exports, that's something that we in the federal NDP do not think serves Canadians. The energy economy is extremely unstable. Just go and try to fill up your car. It's more than $2 a liter for gas. This is a direct result of another illegal war for oil. And oil is driving the price shock that's coming. It's going to make the cost of living even harder. And we think that we need to accelerate the transition to a more stable, secure, and safe economy and a more independent Canadian economy, which actually means not shipping our raw resources elsewhere, but using Canadian materials to create good unionized Canadian jobs across all sectors. And renewable energy can be a major focus of major investments here.
It's going to be a long road back for the NDP. The party is deep in debt. It has just 6 MPs, and the new leader doesn't have a seat in the House of Commons because for now, the Liberals are running the show. And one of the top people in the Liberal government is Dominic LeBlanc, who offered an update yesterday on trade talks and was asked how Canada's shifting position on the war in the Middle East is playing into those trade talks.
The good news is in my conversations with U.S. officials, this has not been an impediment at all. And I know in the Prime Minister's discussion with the President a few weeks ago, it was a Sunday evening, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, to say that that's a barrier or an impediment or even the idea of a changing position, I wouldn't share that view either. I think our position has been clear. It's been articulated by the Prime Minister and my colleagues, the Foreign Affairs and the Defense Ministers. But I see in my conversations with U.S. officials, and I don't speak for Madame Charette or Ambassador Wiseman, but they have not raised with me any issues that they have received from their American counterparts with respect to that issue as well.
Meantime, the Minister of Finance, Francois-Philippe Champagne, was talking about the Air Canada CEO fiasco. It was reported this week the airline's CEO, Michael Rousseau, will be retiring. There had been calls for his firing after he released a video message of condolence following the crash at LaGuardia. The message was almost entirely in English. Champagne said it's up to the board of directors at Air Canada whether it thinks its CEO should speak both official languages, but he thinks the CEO should speak both official languages.
I think it's a question for the board, but let me obviously say you would want to have a CEO which can express himself in both official language of this country. Like I said, it's a matter of importance to their customers first. And I would say it's also a matter of leadership. Like I said, I fly regularly. As you know, I'm on my way to China just tomorrow morning. The agents that I come across, the pilots that I come across, the ground staff that I come, the vast majority of them, they're very pleased to be able to express themselves in the language you prefer, into official language in the country. So I think for me, it's a question of leadership, and I'm sure that the board will have certainly reflected on the latest episode. And I think it's a respect for their customers, but it's also, we ought to have people who serve Canadians, especially when you're talking about transportation and all the sectors where you interact.
The finance minister was also asked about high gas prices and whether the Liberal government is thinking about cutting gas taxes. It doesn't sound like it, but the finance minister is watching it.
I mean, the kind of actions we're seeing on the ground with respect to the Strait of Hormuz has created all sorts of issues, whether it's about gas, whether it's about oil, whether it's about fertilizer, whether it's about jet fuel. We're watching also the trend with respect to shipping. We're watching what we call water on oil to see what is where are the choke points. We're watching the strategic petroleum reserves, the impact, the release that was announced. And what I can say to you now is that we are monitoring this situation very carefully. And we've always been there for Canadians. But I would say for now, the best thing that we can do is to do what we've done, which is be part of this release or adding petroleum assets to the release that was done. Canada contributed. We don't have strategic reserve, but we could have had production. That's what we did. And so we're monitoring the situation very carefully with our partners, both domestically but also internationally.
A liter of gasoline in Canada is subject to the federal excise tax, the federal GST, provincial sales taxes, provincial fuel taxes. The federal excise tax is 10 cents a liter. The GST is applied to the entire price at the pump, including all of those provincial taxes and the excise tax. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, he's with us every week to talk about some of the big stories in the news. Professor Ian Lee is back from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Welcome back, Professor. Good to hear from you.
My pleasure, Rob. Thank you.
Well, the end of the era is almost here. Canada Post has announced it will end home delivery of the mail. It will close many rural post offices. What's your reaction?
It's overdue, long overdue, literally 10, 12 years overdue. I published a report in 2015 for Macdonald-Laurier Institute using only data from the audited annual reports from 2016 up to 2006 to 2015. That's important because I know some people at CupW have criticized that it was my own opinion and so forth. None of my opinion was in it in terms of the data. All the data came from there, from the annual report of Canada Post, tabled in Parliament, showing a precipitous decline in letter mail volumes. And in that 10-year period, when the data was shouting that the post office was in long-term decline from a decline in written letters, the post office did not respond. In fact, I shouldn't say they didn't respond. They hired more people in that period. As their demand went down, their head count went up. And again, these numbers are in the annual report. And so they squandered 10 years of opportunity to adjust the size of Canada Post relative to the demand for Canada Post services. And so they didn't adjust. So they woke up one day with these monstrous deficits, which are only getting larger. And the government has been bailing out Canada Post to the tune of over $1 billion a year. And because the letter mail volumes continue to decline, the deficit will continue to get bigger. So what they have to do now is make up for all that lost time and the ending of rural mail, of door-to-door, and the end of 5-day-a-week delivery and the closing of post offices is going to lead to some very large downsizing, which I've been predicting for years. And we're talking in the thousands and thousands. And they will have to compensate them because it's the law. So they will be, when they do this, the post office is all labor. It's a labor-intensive industry. And
Sure.
so over 75% of their costs are wages. And so
Right.
to reduce costs, to reduce the deficit, you're talking reducing the number of people working there.
Yeah. Now, union leaders upset. They call it, quote, another attempt to derail our negotiations process. They're still negotiating. And they want the rank and file. The union leadership wants the rank and file to vote against the contract offer, the latest contract offer, which does not rule out another work stoppage. What do you think of the position of the postal workers here?
It's unfortunate that I think that there's a conflict of interest. And they get very angry when I say this. I'm talking the leadership versus the workers. And full disclosure, I am unionized at Carleton. Most universities in Canada are unionized. The professors are unionized. The support staff are unionized.
Sure.
And so what I'm saying is this. The CUPW realized that as the post office becomes a lot smaller, there's a lot less workers, and their revenues of any union is a function of how many people are in the union, paying union dues. So if they go down by 50% employees, well, then they're going to have a lot less revenue coming in. So they want to protect the union and keep the union going. But they should be working what I'm saying. They will deny what I'm saying, but they should be saying we've got to work on the best interests of the workers and negotiate the best possible deal, such as a buyout, such as occurred in the government of Canada in 1995 with the Chrétien downsizing.
Right.
That's what they should be working on instead of denying that the post office is shrinking, instead of denying that the volumes are dropping. They should be saying we're going to work assiduously and as hard as we can to get the best deal possible for our members, who are the people that pay the dues. But they're trying to block the downsizing completely. But it's not going to end well because it doesn't make the business come back. And Carney has already said publicly, repeatedly, we are not going to run $1 billion bailouts forever and ever into the future. So it's coming to an end. It's coming to a head. And so and I'm saying this because there's membership out there, CUPW workers. They should be really pressing their leadership to be working for the interests of the workers and not the interest of trying to save the union.
All right. When we come back, city councillors in Toronto have voted for a pilot project for 4 city-run grocery stores, the municipality of Toronto running grocery stores. I want to know what you think of that. I imagine you don't think too much of it, but that's when we come back. It's an idea that seems to be catching on, Professor. We'll talk about it when we return. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
Government-run grocery stores, Professor Ian Lee, very fashionable these days. It was an idea promoted by the new mayor of New York City, Mandani. Avi Lewis, who just won the NDP leadership, promotes this idea. And now the city council in Toronto has approved a pilot project calling for 4 city-run grocery stores. The idea, forgo profits, get a break on property taxes and rent, and people will pay less for food. What do you think of the idea?
It's a dumb idea, and I want to explain why very quickly and accurately. Unlike these people, I am evidence-based. I've been studying this industry in the Strategy Capstone course for about 30 years, and so I know the industry very, very well. And I'm studying their audited annual reports, done by the chartered accountants for the banks and the lenders and the investors. This industry is notoriously low profit margin. There's people out there who say the opposite because they're in deep denial and they don't know what they're talking about, starting with the new leader of the NDP, starting with the council in Toronto. The average profit margin, this is StatsCan data for over 25 years, is 3% to 3.5%. That is less than you can get on a Government of Canada bond. It's a terrible rate of return, as I tell my students. Why would anybody invest in the grocery industry? Why on earth when I can go and get a government bond that's risk-free for a higher rate of return? So it's a myth. It is an absolute myth that they make buckets and buckets of money. 3 to 3.5%. One of the lowest profit margin major industries in Canada. Airlines are probably worse. And so that's the first point. The second, so the idea they're going to make huge amounts of money if you don't make profits and they can pass it on with lower prices is just sheer fantasy. Secondly, what they're talking about is getting free rent from presumably government premises or reduced rent. And they're also talking about not paying property taxes. So what they're saying is someone else is going to pay the property taxes because the city still has bills. It still has bills to pay, and it still has costs. And so what they're saying is we'll get everybody else to pay higher taxes like the homeowners. But I thought that NDP and progressives were out for the little guy, not for corporations, even government-owned corporations. So what they're talking about is sticking everybody else, ordinary Canadians, ordinary people in Toronto or New York City, with higher property taxes to cover off the fact that these organizations will not be paying their taxes. They're going to free ride on everybody else. They're going to be free, Freddie the freeloaders. And the third point is this, and this is the most important point, and why, even though I don't own, I keep saying I'm a capitalist without any capital. I don't own companies. I don't have any investments in companies.
Fair enough.
But I realize they work, and explain why. I'll explain why. When a business loses money because something happens, the market changes, prices go up, whatever, companies act very quickly. We know that. And what do? Well, they lay people off. They change their product lines. They drop products that are not working, that are not selling. Publicly owned, and this has been studied to death for 50, 60, 70 years, government-owned crown corporations, as we call them in Canada, government-owned corporations, are notoriously slow to change precisely because they're owned by the government, and so they have a sugar daddy to bail them out and pay losses, and they can start running losses, and then they get bailed out. That's why Canada Post has $1 billion loss.
I was just going to say, it reminds me of Canada Post. Yeah, it totally reminds me.
Blockbuster Video ran into a very similar situation. Customers stopped going to Blockbuster Video in the late 90s because of the new streaming technology. So what happened? It went bust. It went bankrupt. It laid everybody off, went out of business because there was nobody to subsidize them to continue making millions of dollars of losses. With the public sector, because it's backed up by the government and the taxpayer, there is far less incentive to be efficient and to innovate and to respond to changes in the marketplace. And so what this will be inevitably is they will start running losses, and the tax that'll be passed on to this, in this instance, the city of Toronto, who again is being funded. The city of Toronto gets its revenues from the taxpayer, called the homeowners, and the businesses that pay taxes. So this is not about offering lower prices because they're more efficient. It's about free riding on somebody else and laying off some of the costs of that grocery store on other people for cross-subsidy so that they can say, hey, look, we're offering a cheaper service, but they aren't offering a cheaper service. They're just passing on the bill. It's like the person who goes, 5 people go out for a restaurant, and then when the bill shows up, one of the people, I got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, well, we got to go. Bye-bye.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
It's time for our Tuesday Newsday panel. Focus Alberta today with Stephen Carter, the president of Decide Campaigns. Welcome back, Stephen Carter. Good to hear from you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Kris Sims, Alberta Director, Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Hello, Kris Sims.
Hello. Thanks so much for having us back on, Rob.
Yeah, very good to hear from you. We are, by the way, and I'm keeping this in mind, that former politician, longtime Canadian social and environmental activist Stephen Lewis has just passed away. According to the Stephen Lewis Foundation, announced the death on its website today. Mr. Lewis, former ambassador to the United Nations, once led the NDP in Ontario. He is the father of Avi Lewis, who was just elected as the federal NDP leader on Sunday. So our condolences, of course, will go out to the entire Lewis family. But Avi Lewis and his win is significant for our discussions today because there is a clear split here between some provincial wings of the NDP and the federal NDP. Naheed Nenshi was fast out of the gate, distancing the Alberta NDP from the federal NDP. Stephen Carter, what do you think about that from Mr. Nenshi?
Well, I think that it was his only play. I think that the federal NDP under Avi Lewis's leadership is fundamentally different than any NDP led in Alberta. So he needed to make sure that was noted. Right off the bat, Avi Lewis has come out and suggested that if the Port of Churchill is used to export oil and gas products, then he would oppose it. That is not something that the Alberta NDP can stomach and be associated with in this environment.
Okay, Kris Sims, what do you think?
I find it interesting that he's having to distance himself. And first off, condolences to the Lewis family. I believe it was Stephen Lewis, Rob, that coined the term corporate welfare. So that's going way back into those old fights. So, wow. I think Nenshi had to make this move. But what I find perplexing is that the NDP federally is the same as the provincial NDP. Like their constitution's the same, their boards are the same, they share staff during elections. Like, I don't quite know how they can distance themselves far enough. Like, are they going to have to found their own party is what I'm curious about. Are they going to actually have to break away and declare a different, separate entity, register with Elections Canada, the whole bit?
Okay. Mr. Lewis had a news conference yesterday. Avi Lewis had a news conference yesterday in Winnipeg following the convention. And this is what he said about Carla Beck, first of all, NDP leader in Saskatchewan, and the Alberta NDP leader, Naheed Nenshi. Let's play the clip here.
I cannot wait for Carla to be the Premier of Saskatchewan. We desperately need relief from the Scott Moe government and its cruelty towards workers and its next to Alberta, one of the most regressive governments in Canada. And I've told Naheed, and I've said many times, that I cannot wait for him to be Premier of Alberta. We fully support those provincial sections. Whatever ruffles in the family, my door is open and my hand outstretched to Carla to talk when she's ready. I do believe that hard conversations are necessary. I'm a person who actually welcomes them. I think that we need to have them. And as Wob said, we don't have to agree on every little thing in order to do big things together. So I can't wait to do big things on housing, on healthcare, and on the cost of living with Carla and Naheed and all of the provincial sections across the country.
Okay. I'd like your take on that, Stephen Carter. These governments in Saskatchewan, as they stand right now under Premiers Moe and Smith, are cruel, regressive, and he sounds like he's kind of saying, well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. What do you think about that?
I think he's saying that, as long as you're doing things on my terms, we're going to be quite friendly. I'm not prepared to change in any way. That seems to be the message to Carla Beck. It seems to be the message to Naheed Nenshi. I want you to be the Premier, provided you do things on my terms. Avi Lewis is not noted for being someone who's, a big team player. It's his way or the highway, and I think the message was sent very clearly to Carla Beck and to Naheed Nenshi that they best get on board. Even though the door is open, the expectation is that they come to him. And it's weird because they're not the little brother and sister in this conversation. The provincial NDP is the strength of the NDP. Naheed Nenshi got more votes to be the leader of the provincial New Democrats in Alberta than Avi Lewis got to be the leader of the New Democrats nationally.
Right. Yeah. Interesting point.
That tells us quite a bit.
Interesting point. Kris, what do you think?
How do they reconcile this? Like, these aren't like silly little differences. These are major differences. But also here in Alberta, we had the former NDP Premier Rachel Notley bring in a consumer-level carbon tax. By the time it was done, it was more than $1 billion out the door. She advocated for the pipeline, yes, but it was the feds that turned around and spent, I think it's now up to $30 billion on the Trans Mountain Pipeline. So
That's
those
more than
aren't...
that.
Yeah, my gosh. It should have been about $7 billion of private money, and now it's over $30 billion, to your point, Rob, of taxpayer money. So that can become a disaster really fast. And so I really think ultimately from a taxpayer's perspective, we need clarity from the Heed-Nenshi, and we need clarity from Avi Lewis. Where are you on pipelines? Where are you on carbon taxes? Do you want to keep oil and gas in the ground? Do you want to ban the sale of normal gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles? Yes or no? We need a lot of clarity on this because they're fighting over some major stuff.
Okay, I'd like Stephen Carter to respond to that, but it'll have to wait. When we come back, it's Focus Alberta today. It's our Newsday panel. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Focus Alberta today for our Newsday panel with Stephen Carter, the president of Decide Campaigns. Kris Sims is the Alberta director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. So, I mean, if you're Heed-Nenshi, Stephen Carter, what do you do? Do you, to Kris's suggestion, do you form a new party? Do you change the name of the Alberta NDP? Just what do you do in light of this?
Well, they've already taken the step of disassociating the membership. So now people have to choose to be members of both parties. But that's not far enough. I think that they need to disassociate the party right away. They need to take it out of the being the same party. They're registered with Elections Alberta. The other party's registered with Elections Canada. It's a relatively straightforward maneuver to put themselves back into alignment, I think, with the average Albertan. Avi Lewis being seen as Heed-Nenshi's boss isn't going to help Heed-Nenshi.
Okay. I'm wondering as well, just before we get to Kris, Stephen Carter, how does this help Danielle Smith?
Well, Danielle Smith has a new whipping boy.
Sure.
Avi Lewis stands basically against everything that has built the Alberta economy. He's the author of the LEAP Manifesto. This is a perfect opportunity for him or for Danielle to paint Heed-Nenshi with the same brush.
And I don't suspect she's going to let that go to waste. Kris Sims, what do you think?
Nope. I've already seen emails floating around. I think there must be attack ads already there, basically saying that Avi Lewis and the Heed-Nenshi are, twins separated at birth. This is probably what Premier Smith is going to do, and that's, politically smart for her to do. Just as a political junkie, I kind of find it fascinating that now they're going to have to make a move here pretty quick because, again, to Stephen's point, I can't think of something that Avi Lewis and Danielle Smith agree on. And even if they're nonpartisan, what the average Albertan would see there. Like, Avi Lewis wanted the government to run the grocery stores. Like, that's how far down the LEAP Manifesto rabbit hole we are here now. So right. I do think, actually, Rob, I find this part fascinating. I do think there's a certain percentage of the Canadian population that will find this very attractive. That will be
yes.
Heck yes, we want, we want the government to run the grocery stores. We want to keep oil and gas in the ground. But I don't think it's going to win the NDP aggregate seats physically, provincially in Alberta. That's the pickle.
Okay, let's leap ahead, so to speak, to a deadline on the calendar, because tomorrow was supposed to be the deadline for the Ottawa-Alberta MOU, but there's been no real news of any kind of breakthrough. Stephen Carter, what do you think the delay is? What's your sense of how all this plays out?
I always thought that this was a very aggressive timeline for the memorandum of understanding between the federal and the provincial government. I think that the most important thing is that they remain committed to the principles of the MOU. If there is some sort of breakdown about the principles, then I think we'd have something to worry about. But as it currently stands, I think that Mark Carney and Danielle Smith remain firmly on the same page and are moving towards something quite good for the province of Alberta.
Kris, even this week, the Prime Minister said one of the things is carbon capture and storage and a, quote, carbon market that works, a carbon market that works, having to do with the industrial carbon tax. What role do you think that's playing here?
It's a huge factor. I'm a little bit more cynical on this. If people remember the old Charlie Brown cartoon, I've got images of Lucy holding the football and pulling it away at the last second every time. And that's what it feels like as an Albertan. I know that Premier Smith is much more optimistic than I am, but I think the industrial carbon tax should be a sticking point. We should have zero carbon taxes in Alberta. The very idea that Scott Moe is the only provincial leader to say we have a carbon tax-free zone in our province of Saskatchewan is outrageous, frankly. We shouldn't have any carbon taxes here. What's concerning to us is that right after signing that MOU, the ink was still wet. Carney came out to the media and said, yeah, now your carbon tax is going to be 6 times higher. Enjoy that. And further, Jack Mintz, very respected economist here in Alberta, said, whoa, between this whole carbon capture thing that you're trying to do, which is expensive, and the industrial carbon tax, you guys are adding up to $10 US per barrel to produce oil, to the production cost, which is going to take us out of the running in a lot of cases. So I'm really concerned about the details in this MOU.
Okay. I want to talk about a more local issue when we come back. I mean, it's been the issue for the last week and a half or so at the City Council in Calgary. Blanket rezoning rules, the mother of all meetings that's been happening in Calgary. It's now into its second week. I don't know when it's going to end. But if blanket rezoning is repealed, what's going to replace it? I guess that's what I want to get at with our panelists today on Focus Alberta. It's our news day now. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Here with Focus Alberta, Kris Sims is the Alberta Director, Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Stephen Carter is the president of Decide Campaigns. And I remember, Stephen, speaking to you just before municipal election day in Calgary, and you were saying blanket rezoning. That was like the issue in the election campaign. And it sounds like it's still the issue, right? It's the issue. Hundreds and hundreds of people have been having their 5 minutes for the last week and a half at Calgary City Council. First of all, this is going to be repealed, right? Blanket rezoning. Is that your anticipation, Stephen Carter?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear that councillors don't want to give property rights to property owners in Calgary, and they want to pull away the opportunity to maximize your resources in your house and instead want to minimize it. And that for a very loud group of people who, see only the single-family home as the Calgary dream. Instead, your land is going to be worth less because of this type of decision making.
Well, one of the things that I've heard, though, Stephen Carter, is that this is not creating more affordable housing. They're tearing down, say, a $500,000 post-war bungalow and replacing with a fourplex where every unit is worth $500,000 is not really providing more affordable housing. What do you think of a criticism like that, which I'm sure you've heard?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Most of the places that are being torn down, if a house gets torn down, it's worth $500,000. Something that's worth 1.25 is going up in its place if it's a single-family home. If it's a quad or something along those lines, it's coming back up for $550 or $425. The market dictates. The market is the market, and for some reason, a market forces only work outside of housing is the free market call. I think that market forces work in every industry, and we should be following market forces in every industry. That would be allowing the market to determine what type of housing we need in Alberta and getting government out of the way. But these conservatives, these so-called conservatives, are pretending in some fashion that their government overreach is a good idea for making every decision subject to council's whims is in some fashion good for the market. And I just think that that's ridiculous.
Well, if it's one thing I know about Kris Sims, she loves the free market. So what do you think about this?
We also respect people who own their homes and live in their homes and want to do with their property what they want to do.
The hypocrisy comes again. It's not what they want to do. It's what their neighbors want to do, Kris. Their neighbors want to put up sell to someone who wants to put up a sixplex. That should be allowed. It's not impinging on your property rights.
Right.
Okay,
and I was
let
about
Kris
to
finish
say,
here. Okay. Right.
I was about to say, our supporters are really split on this. Like to Stephen's point, they're flip a coin. So our supporters are pretty split on this. So to me, the best part is that people are having their say. I think it's super important that they keep the lines open. What we don't want is we don't want them to do time limits at Calgary City Hall. We were hearing from Mayor Farkas, though, saying good things, that anyone who wants to speak can speak and have their say. So ultimately, that's the baseline. They have to be able to speak up and have their say of what they want to happen with their own property and how
Right.
that impacts their own property and the value. But hey, man, like our people are split on this. So,
Right.
like, I can't say one way or the other,
But
Stephen or
it's
Rob.
sort of reminiscent of the last time this debate happened, when you had hundreds of people show up at Calgary City Council and they were ignored and they passed it anyway.
Yep.
I'm just wondering if the same thing is happening. It's just in the reverse this time.
Yeah, I mean,
Stephen?
anytime you're doing a public hearing, you're getting a bastardized sample. It is not a full sample of the population.
Yeah, agree.
So, this is just another exercise in determining what rights we deserve and which rights we don't deserve.
Maybe we could have a referendum on it.
Oh my God.
Well, that's next week's Focus Alberta. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Stephen Carter from Decide Campaigns, from the CTF. Kris Sims, Talkback is up next. Okay, Boomer. We're coming for you, baby boomers, on Talkback today. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today's topic, generational fairness, or what I'm calling, okay, boomer. The baby boomers. This is our question, okay? Should baby boomers pay a little bit more and take a little bit less by way of government benefits so that life can be easier for younger generations? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. We are going to talk with your help today about things like home equity taxes, clawing back retirement benefits like old age security, and maybe a few more things along the way. It's been in the news recently. This is one of the inspirations for the topic today. The Canadian men over the age of 65 now earn more on average than men 25 to 34 years old in this country. Think about that. That's a number from a well-known Canadian economist, Professor Mike Moffat, who has been a guest from time to time on this program over the years. According to his research, using income data from Statistics Canada, the average 65-year-old man in Canada pulls down $61,600 a year, while a Canadian man between the ages of 25 to 34 pulls down an average of $61,200 a year. The retiree making more than the working age man. And according to Professor Moffat, that has never happened before in Canadian history, that 65-year-old men would be making more than men in some of the prime working years of their lives. It's never happened before. He writes that both average and median incomes for older men have increased by about $23,000 since 1976, while for younger men, average and median incomes have decreased by more than $8,000. And now here we are at a point in time that we have never been, where men over the age of 65 are actually taking home more money than men 25 to 34 years old in this country. That is one thing that has been in the news over the last few weeks. Also in the news over the last few weeks on this topic today, old age security. Old age security. According to Canada's chief actuary, the cost to fund Canada's old age security system is expected to increase 53% between the years 2020 and 2035, driven by the full retirement of the baby boomers. So by the year 2035, less than a decade from now, the OAS system will cost Canadian taxpayers more than $94 billion, up from $43 billion just 5 years ago. The OAS system's funded entirely from government revenues. It's not based on contributions like the CPP. And the case is being made by some in the news media that too many affluent seniors qualify for old age security, and they are pressuring the federal government to make changes to old age security. They say taxpayers should not be sending payments every year that total roughly $18,000 a year to retired couples that have incomes of $182,000 a year. That threshold for the clawback, they argue, should be lowered down to something more reasonable. And reasonable, they say, would be $100,000 or $82,000. Why, they ask, would the government send retirement checks to seniors who have a combined household income of $185,000, seniors who probably own their own homes, while so many young people can't even afford a basic starter home? It's not fair, they say. And then, this is always lurking in the background, the government denies it would ever do this or is even thinking about it, but people bring it up from time to time, a home equity tax. Years ago, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation provided hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding to a Vancouver-based think tank to study and promote the idea of a home equity tax. Right now, as you know, if you sell your primary residence, there's no capital gains tax. But what the think tank came up with, thanks to government money from CMHC, was a surtax on homes valued at more than $1 million. And in its literature on the matter, it said people living in a home worth $1 million should share, quote, a small slice of the wealth windfalls that they have enjoyed from our housing system. They're saying, we're looking at you, boomer. If you live in a house that's now worth more than $1 million, you should have to share the wealth, they say, because it's not fair. Because young people can only ever dream of buying any house, let alone $1 million house. So when you put it all together from 10,000 feet up, it's a picture that kind of looks like this. The baby boomers have done very well, maybe better than any generation ever, and they're still doing very well. Many men over the age of 65 are making more than men in their 20s and 30s. The government is still sending affluent seniors old age security checks, totaling thousands of dollars a year, to boomers with household incomes of $185,000 a year. Most seniors are homeowners. They own their own home. They've paid off their mortgage. They're mortgage-free. They're living in homes that have dramatically increased in value over the decades, homes that are mostly out of the reach of young homeowners. And because of that, they should have to give a little bit back because it's all too much and it's not fair. It's not fair to younger generations who don't have the same kind of job prospects, don't make the same kind of money, can't afford the same kind of house, and at the same time are expected to pay for all the obligations of those 65 plus retirement benefits, healthcare costs. So the boomers should give a little bit back. Take a little less and give a little bit back. Pay a special tax on that home that's gone way up in value and take less in old age security payments. We want to know, what do you think of that idea in the interests of generational fairness? Should Canadians over the age of 65 be asked to make some sacrifices so that younger generations can have a better life? What would you say? What would you say to that? What do you think? Where do you come down on this? 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. If you've never called before, mention that. We'll make your call a priority. And let's talk about the boomers today, whether they should pay a little more and take a little less to make life easier for the younger generations. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Should Canadians over the age of 65, the boomers, be asked to make some sacrifices so the younger generations can have an easier life? What would you say? Would you say, yeah, the boomers have done very well. They should share the wealth. OAS should be fully clawed back at a lower income level, for example. And maybe there should be a tax on homes that have gone way, way up in value. Or would you say, no, Canadian boomers shouldn't have to make any more sacrifices? They built the programs we rely on. They paid into the system for decades. They play by all the rules. There's no reasons to change the rules. Status quo is just fine. What do you think? Where do you stand? Where do you come down on it? For the Tuesday Talkback, we start in Calgary today. Stephanie is there. Hello, Stephanie.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm very good. Stephanie, thank you for calling. What's your opinion here?
Well, I'm a millennial. I grew up, in a really nice house. My parents, they had a nice house with a pool, a nice neighborhood, everything. And as I grew older, I found out they had help buying their first house. So their parents or grandparents helped pay for their house. So that's how they got into buying their first house. And of course, it's only skyrocketed in value since then and gained so much equity.
Right.
But we don't have that anymore. I'm seeing more and more, especially with me and my brother and everybody else my age. We're not getting the same generosity from our parents or grandparents. So no one really in our family is stepping in saying, we're going to help you buy a house. Let's get you into the housing market. So I feel like they really had a leg up back then. They definitely had way more available to them than we have. So yeah, I think baby boomers are just raking it in these days.
Raking it in. Okay. Well, should they rake in as much as they're raking in, or should they have to maybe, as I say, take a little less and pay a little more? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think your point there about having a threshold of the $180,000.
Yeah, household income, $185,000. You could still get some OAS payments. That'd be a good place to start. They say it would save tens of billions of dollars. Tens of billions of dollars. Yeah, yeah.
I think so.
You say, their homes have gone way, way up in value, right?
Yeah.
Way, way up in value. What if it reaches $1 million? Should they pay a tax? Say, if it's worth $1 million, pay a 2% tax or whatever?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I'm not too sure about that. But
one.
I mean, because it's hard to say. I can't really say anything about that. I don't want to jeopardize the market, and but it's that we. You
feel as though you don't have the same opportunity, right? You don't have the same opportunity that they have. Yeah, I got you.
Prices have gone up so much. It's incredibly hard to even rent. The prices are so high for rent, and I keep hearing that the housing prices are cooling off, and therefore rent is lowering. Well, we're just not quite there yet, especially not in Calgary.
Not quite there yet. No, a long way to go yet. Yeah. Okay, Stephanie, thank you. You've got us off to a good start. From Calgary, let's go to Nova Scotia. Pam is in Nova Scotia. Hello, Pam.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Pam.
I feel having listened to your caller that just hung up, her situation is a little bit different than ours down here in Nova Scotia. I grew up in a family where my father worked morning, noon, and night, that kind of thing, to provide for a household of 4 kids and a wife, that kind of thing. And when they got older, they needed that money, of course, because he had his own business to survive and pay the bills, all that great stuff. We never got handouts at all. We all worked in our family. We worked our butts off, let me tell you, to have what we have. My house down here in Nova Scotia is probably worth $650,000. It's not like a mansion with a pool or anything like that. I only had one kid, and that for health reasons, I only had one kid. I'm 64 now, and I'm retired. My husband did recently retire, but because retirement was so expensive, and he was getting the CPP and the old age security and stuff, plus he had a pension, it's just not enough these days. So anyways, he has gone back to work. We help to offset the costs with family members, let's put it that way, and it's a constant thing. So we're supporting others in many ways, shapes, and form. So to ask more from my level of income coming into the house or revenue stream is not something I would even want to entertain. Maybe at the mega wealth level, perhaps they have some room to squeak out a little bit more to help society.
Right. But don't come after you. Don't come after you. Don't come after you.
I think they're coming after the wrong segment of people here. I just don't think they have wiggle room anymore. The food banks are just maxed to the nines. People are taxed to death, like they're fighting over tax rates in Nova Scotia now, which are probably decided today. It's just overtax. And when does it end? It never ends. And it'll just drive businesses to leave. It'll drive people, I think, the wealthier to leave Canada. I just think that the government needs to stop the mega spending at the federal level. That's where it starts. It starts with the leader, whether he likes to hear it or not. The socialistic society does not work. Yeah.
All right. We got to go. I got to go. Thank you, Pam. So there you go. Two pretty opposing views there to start Talkback. What about you? Okay, Boomer, generational fairness. You're going to pay a little bit more, maybe by way of a home equity tax. You're going to take a little bit less, too, if you're an affluent senior. No more OAS for you. Government's going to take that money, make investments that will make life easier for millennials, Gen Z. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
In the interest of generational fairness, should baby boomers pay a little more, maybe by way of a home equity tax or something similar, and take a little less by way of restricting OAS payments for the most affluent seniors, all to make life easier for younger generations? Bob is in Calgary today. What do you think of these ideas, Bob? 2 thumbs up.
Hey, how are
Bob?
you, Rob?
Good. Thank you, Bob.
Can you hear me?
Yep, hear you just fine. Go ahead.
So, I'm 70. I born and raised in Calgary. My parents left home when I was 17, and I had to fend for myself. I worked through 3 separate recessions and raised a family and never asked anybody for a penny. And I believe that if we want to fix the problem of the millennials, we got to teach them some work ethic. And I think if we reduced our government by maybe 40% and use that money to build a better environment for people to get out there and get to work, we'd be a whole lot better off.
I don't know, Bob. I mean, I know a lot of young people. They're not just working one job and working hard at it. They're working 2 jobs, 3 jobs.
I did too.
I don't buy into this idea that the millennials or Gen Z. I don't buy into this thing that they're lazy. Most of the young people I know are very hardworking.
Not all of them. I own my own business, and I'm still working at 70. And don't go in every day because I can tell you the work ethic is not there. I have people taking a day off for their spouse's dentist appointment, 6 months off if their spouse is pregnant. So I work 2 jobs myself, and I work day and night to make the world go around, and it didn't do me any harm. And what you're talking about there, making it fair for everybody, read the book Atlas Shrugged and see how that worked out. If the most needy get the most money, then the incentive is to become more needy, not to be fending for yourself.
All right.
Socialism and communism are a step away from each other.
I understand this, and I'm bringing these ideas up because there are people in positions of influence who have the ears of politicians, and these are the things that they're saying should be done. For example, should a senior couple with a combined household income of $185,000 get payments from old age security? Do they really need the money?
Well, not like one of your earlier callers, but I'm very generous to my kids and grandkids. I help them out through my hard work. And the thought of the government swooping in and trying to take a large portion of the inheritance away from the family that I work for makes me sick. And when you're talking about houses, the first house I bought for $120,000, I couldn't sell it a year later for $85,000. Now, if the threshold was $100,000 back then and you tax me on it, then when it's $85,000, I don't trust the government to, number one, shepherd the money properly or ever reimburse anybody for anything. Combined income tax, I paid over $7 million. I might get $35 back at the end of the day.
Okay.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Generational fairness. Should baby boomers pay a little bit more? Some kind of taxes on homes that have gone way up in value? That idea has been floated before. And certainly there's a push on to do something about OAS and restrict OAS, old age security payments, for affluent seniors in order to save money and make it easier for younger generations. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. Ryan is in Calgary today. Hello, Ryan.
Hi. Yeah, I don't think that we should be taxing these houses more and taxing people more than they already are. I grew up in a middle-class family. I'm 36 years old, and I bought my first house in 2014. I was about, 24, 25 years old, me and my wife, making, $18, $23 an hour. Saved up, bought a townhome. It was $294,000. Fast forward now, I bought a house 2019 for $450. Is now worth $700. And I'm just a welder. I didn't go to school for a degree. My wife either. She's a hairdresser. And I just don't see how we didn't really struggle that bad. My parents loaned me $7,000 when I bought that house. I paid them back over the next year and a half for the down payment. So I don't really see how it's so hard for these young people to save up and buy a house or pay their rent. I think a big issue we have is luxury items and vacations. People see social media and think they deserve that lifestyle. But in reality, that's not how our parents grew up. And to touch on this equity tax, where does this cash come from? Are we taxing the sale of the house, or are we just taxing people every year on this equity?
Well, what's being floated is a surtax. Whether that's an annual amount, hard to say. Whether it's upon the sale of the house, but if it's the idea, being floated by this one organization, Generation Squeeze, is if it's worth more than $1 million, you should have to pay a surtax, because there's no way it costs you $1 million.
I just feel like then what's the point of working hard and trying to get ahead when you're just going to be taxed and everything's taken from you at the end of your life?
Right.
And
then you think
that.
Right now the problem with the younger generations isn't that the older generations are so much better off or had it so much easier. It's that the lifestyle expectations of younger generations are different.
I think so, and I think priorities are different. Just going out for dinner and drinks, it's $300 now by the time you take an Uber home and everything. Our parents were not doing that. Mine weren't, at least. We lived in the cities and everything, and they'd hang out with friends and do their thing, but I don't think they're going out for these fancy dinners like, lots and lots of young people are. The bars are full on the weekends. The hockey games are packed. Beers are $15. I think it's just a spending issue. People aren't saving money like they need to be.
People aren't spending money.
Okay. They're spending money on things that aren't really a priority. Pay your bills first, and if there's anything left, then do it. But don't have luxury items and designer clothes and luxury vacations and complain about rent. So, and interest costs. You're racking up that credit card. That is just lost money every month. If you have debt to renovate your basement, sure. But on luxury items and events and going out to concerts, and if you don't have the money for it, you can't do it. Bottom line.
All right. You sound very disciplined, Ryan. You've done very well. Thank you very much for your call today to Halifax. We go. Eric is in Halifax. Hello, Eric.
How are you doing this afternoon, Rob?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Eric, go ahead.
Well, I can't afford to take care of myself alone to help the young people. I feel sorry for them. I know a lot of them out there are probably working their butts off to try to make ends meet. But like I was talking to Curtis, what I'm making now, I made 20 years ago, and if it wasn't for the government, I'd be living on the street. I mean, if they even think about cutting back on old age pension or whatever,
right?
I'll have no other choice but to live in a tent.
Well, the idea is not to tax or claw back old age security for someone like you, Eric, who's barely getting by. Okay, but do you have to send an old age security check to someone? A wealthy retiree with an annual income of $185,000, household income of $185,000.
No, I wouldn't do that because they're living way beyond their means and they don't need any help. I mean, if you're making $185,000 a year, you don't need any help. I mean, I wish I could make another 20,000 just to keep my head above water. So no, I don't agree with that at all. I think a person with $135,000 or $140,000 a year, they should be pretty well off.
Right, but they're still getting checks from the government for old age security,
well,
which people would say,
which
people would say is not fair to you. Maybe if we didn't send checks to. And, it totals billions and billions and billions of dollars a year for affluent seniors with household incomes of $185,000 a year. Then maybe old age security payments and GIS could go up for people who are, at the lower income threshold, like you, and you can invest in programs that would help the younger generation. That's kind of what we're getting at today. We'll stop here and take more of your calls. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback. Okay, Boomer. There are policy proposals out there that have their sights set on the Boomer generation because you've had it too darn good. And it's not fair to the younger generation. What do you think? Give us a call on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Natalie is in Calgary, is up next on Talkback. Hello, Natalie.
Oh, hi there. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Natalie. Thank you. What should we do with these baby boomers? They've done so well. Shouldn't they have to share the wealth a little bit?
But have they done so well? Really? You know what? I think Ryan really hit the nail on the head. So my dad is a baby boomer. And I remember growing up in the 70s, and I remember my dad getting laid off. And I remember having to uproot our life from Ontario and move to Saskatchewan because that's where the work was at the time. And my dad has worked really, really hard, and he was really good with his money, and he made some really sound investments. And for people say, well, we shouldn't make some sacrifices now. Oh, my God, the sacrifices my dad made to give us the life that we had and the values that he taught us with money and with work so that we can have the life that we have now. My dad made the sacrifices, and he doesn't have to make any more sacrifices. And I took the values that my dad taught me. I passed those on to my children, who are now millennials. And my son was 22 when he bought his first condo. And so every generation has its struggles. I struggled. I was a single mom with 2 kids before I got married. I've made sacrifices for the life that I have now. So you know what? The baby boomers, they've paid their dues. They've paid their taxes. They've built their life. Let them live it. And let the millennials stop their spending, be a little bit more responsible with their money, and then they will have the life that my dad now has. And I don't know how old you are, but I imagine your dad probably had his struggles. Your parents had their struggles. Every generation has financial struggles. This isn't a new thing. It's just life. And you know what?
I'm in my mid-50s. Struggles, I've had a few. And I've seen my parents go through their their own struggles. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But to this point, because this is a real sticking point, there's been lots of media about this over the last few weeks. We are sending old age security checks to people with combined household incomes of $185,000. Why are we doing that? Is that fair?
But when you talk about combined household incomes, are you talking about Canadians that are currently working, or are you talking about combined household incomes?
No, this is retirement income that they have. Retirement income, right. Investment income, whatever the case might be.
Their investments. And so that was money that they put away. That's money that they took away throughout their entire adulthood life so that they could have the life. And here's another thing. My husband's grandparents are over 100 years old. And so they saved to live into, their mid-80s. They've surpassed that by 20 years, and now they are genuinely struggling. So who's to say how old these seniors are going to live? My dad now, so you and I are the same age, my dad just celebrated his 82nd birthday, and I hope I have him for another 20 years. I genuinely do. And he's got income to last for the next 20 years. But what happens in 25 years? What if he exceeds his life expectancy?
Sure. Yeah, good point.
Right?
Good point. Fair point.
So it's not about how they're living the high life. These seniors and their investment income, that's supposed to last them the rest of their life. And my husband's grandmother, when I look at the life she has now, they lived in this amazing retirement facility, and they were living the high life. And now she's tucked away in some hospital in Regina with government funding, and it's heartbreaking, the care that she has now, because she outlived her retirement income. So we can't take that from these seniors because we don't know how long they're going to live.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Let's go to Russ in High River. Hello, Russ.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Russ. Good to hear from you, Russ. You're on the air.
Hey, I like that lady that you just talked to. She's right on. She's right on. I'm 76. I worked hard. My parents worked hard, and it was tough. But you know what? My kids are doing well. My grandkids, I see them, and they're spending money. They fly all over. They go on trips. They do, and I love them to death. But their priorities are different, and just because some group in Vancouver, I think it's Victoria, did this survey about millennials, and the ones you're talking about, that group.
Generation Squeeze.
Yeah, they all happen to be like 20 years old and whining because they didn't want to work. When I started to work, I got married very young, and my wife and she worked nights and I worked days. You know what? We worked hard, like that lady said. And I'm retired now. I have money, but I don't know. I'm assuming I'm going to live till 100, I hope. But do I have money till then? I hope so. But there's no way that I didn't earn and pay into what I should get. And some university person, there was a group, I know it was actually funded by the Trudeau government.
Yes, it was funded by CMHC. It was funded by CMHC, yeah.
Yeah, it was funded by the government to do it. And then what it is this government overspends, and they don't know how to control their own spending. We don't have an income problem. We have a spending problem in this country. Anyway, I know you should not leave us alone. We worked on
leave me alone. Right.
Well, I don't know how old you are, and I'm sure you're a lot younger than I am.
I just said to the other lady, I'm in my mid-50s.
You're just I'll tell you what, my kids are in their 50s, and they have their homes, and they do that. And you know what? I wish them luck. They had to struggle. We struggled. Guess what, Buttercup? Suck it up. You have to struggle.
Suck it up. Suck it up. Okay. All right. That's a common theme today. I'm not surprised to hear it. Suck it up. Don't be going out to dinner so often. Don't be taking fancy trips everywhere. Be more disciplined with your money. All of these things. But why is it when you look at the Global Happiness Report, you have the older Canadians saying, we're very happy. We're very happy with the way things are going. Things are going great. And they're the 8th happiest older generation in the entire world. And they look at the results for the younger Canadians, and they're the 58th happiest young people in the world. Like, how do you explain that divide? What is going on there? Thank you for your call. I got to run. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We have been talking about generational fairness today. Generational fairness. Asking the boomers to make some sacrifices. Hey, pay a little more, take a little less. Whatever we save, we'll plow into programs that make it easier for younger generations, the younger millennials, Gen Z. 1-833-668-2577. Paul is in Calgary. Hello, Paul.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Yeah, very good, Paul. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say thanks for your patience with some people, because I'm sure there's lots of callers you'd rather, rip a new one sometimes, but you really do judge things quite well. And I really like that guy from Blackwater. You have him on occasion. I really like him. It seems to me that people have a completely different look at this, whether they own a house or they don't own a house. And once they do own a house, they don't want any restrictions on building or rent control. So it's a really thorny issue for politicians to resolve the problem.
Yeah. Housing for me, my old producer, David, he says, housing for me, but not for thee. Right?
Yeah.
He was a young guy, and it used to drive him crazy. The callers would call and say, well, you just have to work harder and not spend as much money. Stop going out to dinner. Stop taking vacations, these sorts of things. And it's sort of lost on people. It's hard. It is hard these days.
I get a lot of young kids come work for me as young electrician apprentices, and I see the money that they do spend on Skip the Dishes and YouTube subscriptions. Certainly they could maybe trim the fat a little bit, and then the people paying old age, getting old age premiums or getting money,
old age security
when they make money, if they make $200,000, they probably paid for old age security along their way the whole life. So there have been a point where they could have opted out of paying and said, I'm not going to ever claim it. Just doesn't seem great that you pay into it and then you can't get it.
Well, this complaint has been around for a long time, that the threshold where the clawback is completely eliminated is far too high. People have pointed this out before. At a combined household income $185,000. Imagine how much pension income and investment income is coming into the house if you're bringing in $185,000 at that time of your life. Do you really need the government to be sending you a check every month?
No,
or putting a deposit in your bank account. And as for, should you, pay into something and not qualify for it? Well, there are all kinds of government programs that operate on a sliding scale, right? Where people pay into it, but the benefit that they receive from it is based on their income.
It's all these things are such thorny issues for any politician.
Oh, sure.
And it's challenging.
Yeah. But on the crux of the issue, asking boomers who have done very well to pay a little more and take a little less. What do you think about it? Just generally speaking, what do you think?
Yeah, we fell into our house pretty nicely, and it's just shy of $1 million based on city assessments, but we have a $500,000 mortgage on it, and I can't imagine paying another $100 a month for some luxury tax to help other people.
Okay. There you go. Okay, boomer. All right. Look, if you're on the line, stay on the line. Lots of time to take your call after the news.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
We've been talking about the boomers today. In the interest of generational fairness, should we have the boomers pay a little more, take a little less, make life easier for the younger generations? We're thinking about things like home equity taxes or surtaxes on $1 million homes, which has been promoted before, or decreasing or cutting off altogether OAS payments for affluent seniors. That's been all over the media in the last few weeks. Ideas like that. What do you think? Right back to our phone calls. To Nova Scotia we go again. Steve. Hello, Steve.
How are you, Rob?
Very good, Steve.
Hello.
Thanks for calling. Go ahead, Steve. Yep.
Yeah, just talking about the OAS. I'm 79 years old, and back when I was 65, I made a decision back then because I live comfortably. I'm not wealthy, but I live comfortably, and I chose back then to not take OAS or CPP, and maybe it was just my way of giving back. But I'm in agreement with when your income is at a certain level, that perhaps you don't need that income. What I would like to perhaps see is if I'm not going to take that income or I don't receive that income, can I actually get a tax deduction on my tax return that at least gives me back some of the money because I am now contributing more to society than perhaps any other generation has ever given by no longer being able to have that extra income coming to me. So it's just a thought that I have about perhaps my OAS and if I'm not taking CPP as well, and I haven't for the last almost 15 years. Why not have my ability to have a tax deduction? And I'm just throwing that out as a thought for other people to think about.
All right.
Now, today's generation, yes. they work they're working as hard as any generation that's probably been before them. It's a different society. When I grew up, there was a lot of manual labor type work. Today, I think 70% of the Canadian economy is a service industry, where it's not necessarily as manually type work as it used to be. So there is a complete change there's a complete change of where our economy has gone. But at the end of the day, they're working just as hard, I think, as any of us have ever worked. And one more simple comment. Over the next few years, there is going to be a wealth transfer in the country from boomers to all the other generations in excess of $1 trillion. So there is a lot of money that's going to be moving to other generations regardless. That's a huge wealth transfer that's about to occur.
Well, they keep predicting that. I wonder how much of that is going to be left after, especially to the previous caller's point, Natalie in Calgary, who said, what about the seniors who are living longer and longer and longer, and maybe they plan to live until they're 80 or 85, but they end up living until 95 or 100. How much of that money is going to be left? And when you get very old, it doesn't take long for the bills in someone's old age to add up. If they need home care, long-term care, those sorts of things. The moment that your income begins to drop, you should be able to then get back into getting OAS again. So it's not a lifetime thing that you should be able to draw back on some stuff. And the thing is that there is a part of the population that is going to affect. We have to make sure that they're taken care of. And that's something that society. We have okay. Yeah, thank you, Steve. Let's go back to Calgary. Ken, first-time caller from Calgary. Hello, Ken.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, very good, Ken. Thank you. What's your opinion here?
Well, I mean, I bought my first house in 1970 for $15,000. I had to come up with $3,000, and that was a hard struggle. And the interest rate then was 24% interest on that house. We struggled really hard to move on and get through that, but we have made our money we're both working real hard. I'm 72. I finally bought my last house 25 years ago, and it was $395,000. Now it might be worth $1 million, but I still haven't even paid the first $395,000 up, and I'm still working. So for them to decide that they want to take money back from me would be insane. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Insane. Okay. Let me read you a little bit from the group that promotes this. Okay. It's time to ask provincial and federal governments to tax wealth more, including housing wealth. Housing prices have skyrocketed across Canada, and one result is wealth windfalls for established older homeowners fortunate enough to have gotten into the market decades ago. Homeowners worked hard to buy their homes. The financial gains, though, aren't because of any particular savvy financial planning or investment decisions. Rather, rising home prices bestowed this wealth on them while they slept and watched TV. To top it off, our tax system shelters this housing wealth from taxation by comparison with other assets, advantaging older homeowners while penalizing young people. What do you think of that?
Well, I think, let me tell you another one. I helped my first son help buy a house. We ended up selling it to him. We paid huge capital gain on it just so we could help him get his first house. Now, the second house we got, if they make me pay capital gain on everything I've worked for, then what was the use of working all these years for the government? But thanks for the call.
All right. Thank you for your call, Ken. Bye-bye. You know, the people who are advocating home equity taxes or surtaxes on $1 million homes, they're saying it's not like, Boomer, you're any kind of financial genius to make this wealth. You made it while you were sleeping and watching TV. It's not fair. And you should have to share that wealth by way of a wealth tax on your home. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just throwing it out there to spark the conversation. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's ask Noah. He's in Calgary. Whether we should tap the boomers for a little bit more in the interest of fairness. Noah, what do you think, Noah?
Good afternoon, Mr. Snow. So just for, I guess, a bit of disclosure, I'm in the prime earning years bracket and I'm not a homeowner. Ultimately, I view old age security as more of a safety net of last resort, similar to EI. And so most specifically to your point about affluent boomers basically taking in a large portion of old age security, and I believe potentially saving the government $7 billion per year, if I remember the article correctly, if we were no longer to give them old age security. It depends more on whether that money is spent well, and equally so I don't believe that taxes provide a good incentive. We need to find a way to make the economy in Canada way better, because this is less a house price problem and more of an income to price problem from my perspective. If housing costs were a smaller proportion of overall income, it wouldn't matter as much, in the same way that, if a house costs $3 million, it doesn't matter if I'm earning $2 million per year, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Well, it's this idea that he used to take, used to be able to buy a house. We did an interview about this a few weeks ago. 3 times the annual income used to get you a house, right? Income to price ratio. And now in many cities, it's 6 times. In the most expensive markets, it's 8 times, 9 times. In places like Toronto and Vancouver, that something is broken. And people who are advocating for taxes on homes or equity taxes are saying, the system is broken. These people are sitting on, giant windfalls that they really didn't earn. It's a function of the market and housing policy, generally speaking. So we should tap those people a little bit more, take whatever we can get by way of a housing tax, whether it's a home equity tax or a surtax on $1 million homes, build more affordable housing, make investments into programs that can help younger generations, whether that's, reducing tuition for post-secondary education, making investments in childcare, those sorts of things. What do you think about that?
Ultimately, I have never been a fan of adding more taxes just across the board. It always comes down to an incentive problem and like a spending problem. And if I hate to put it this way, but if we had a lot of people that just had more money, then this wouldn't necessarily be as much of an issue.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Noah in Calgary. Lane also in Calgary today. Hello, Lane.
Hello, Rob. How are you today?
Very good, sir. Thank you. Go ahead. What's your opinion?
Well, first of all, I'd like to know what makes people think having a house that goes up in value means it's fair to start taxing extra for it. That house extra value doesn't do us any good if we can't sell it and buy another house of the same, that's much cheaper, that's the same value, like same quality of house. So we're just sitting on wealth that we don't have any way to actually access or utilize without borrowing against it. So that's an irrelevant point. Suggesting that we should suddenly pay more money because our house is worth more when it doesn't provide us any specific benefit is ridiculous. But you asked earlier what the big difference was between older generation's happiness level and younger generation's happiness level.
Yes.
In my opinion, as a part of the older generation, we were taught responsibility, and we were taught that if you wanted something, you had to get off your ass and go get it. You had to take responsibility for yourself, work hard, and do your best to get what you want.
You don't think the 20-something is taught that anymore? You don't think 20-somethings have been taught that by their parents?
I don't think most of them have. My wife was a high school teacher, and I can tell you that the majority of those kids were taught that they were special, they could be anything they want, but nobody stepped up to tell most of those kids that in order to get there, you had to work and put in effort. So a large percentage of them grow up thinking somebody owes them, or anybody owes them, and that their problems are all because of somebody else. So it's very nice for them to hear from the government that, oh, your problem isn't that you're not doing enough work or you're not taking responsibility for yourself. Your problem is that other people are rich, so we should take from them and give to you. That's a very easy thing to hear for people who don't want to take responsibility for themselves. It's not hard to see how those kind of people can then turn around and say, oh, yeah, that's perfectly fair. Others have more than me, so I should be able to take from them and make myself better off. Why is nobody saying, why is it that the government is looking to take away from people who have earned what they were promised? Why is it the government is not stepping back and going, how can we cut back on our spending? How can we stop wasting money so that we can provide more for younger people? I'm not against helping younger people. I agree. It's hard to buy a house. I worry about how younger people can buy a house nowadays because they're so expensive. But one of the things my wife and I did is we taught our kids to take responsibility for themselves, and we taught them to work hard. And they're doing quite well because of it. Not because we paid money to buy houses for them. Nobody paid money to buy houses for us. We earned it. Some people get that. And if they do, that's great. That's a family business. That's not government business to decide to take away from families and choose how much families should pass on to their own children. That's up to families.
Okay.
At no
Thank
time
you.
should the
Gotta
government
run.
decide.
Yeah, you're very clear on your opinion, sir. Thank you very much for sharing it. Appreciate the call. 1-833-668-2577. Keep those calls coming in today. Very hot talkback today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. Generational fairness we've been talking about today. Whether the boomers should pay a little more, take a little less. To Surrey we go. Frank is there. Hello, Frank.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Frank. What do you think?
Very interesting topic, and I have some opinions. I'm a boomer. I don't really have a problem with cutting back OAS for people that have more money. I think that's logical. The only thing I would say is I would like to see that money go to reduce the deficit and not create new government programs, because I'm concerned about my kids and grandkids and what kind of taxes they're going to have to pay when we're running deficits of $70 and $80 billion a year. So, if they're going to reduce the old age pension a bit for those who are on the higher end of the income scale, then just use that money and pay down the debt. Don't create a whole lot of new programs which cost a lot to administer and end up benefiting people very selectively. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of home equity tax, I think people that propose this, and it's Paul Kershaw from UBC, who's the head of this generation.
Paul Kershaw, yeah. That's right.
The people who propose this, I don't think they really fully understand what homeowners have to deal with. As seniors, as homeowners, if you own a detached home like we do, we have to pay a lot of money each year to do maintenance and repairs. I've had a lot of maintenance and repair bills over the past year. That money comes from the limited income we have. We're not working anymore. We're retired. We have retirement income. Paul Kershaw and people who work for government have fully indexed pensions and make very good money in retirement. I have one pension that I got from my employer, which is not indexed, and with inflation, it's worth less every year. So OAS and CPP are very helpful to help us pay those bills that we have to pay. And even people who own homes that are condos or apartments, they're paying that too because they're paying strata fees every month. So, you're really penalizing homeowners in a lot of ways. And, when I listen to the comments from your callers today, and I think there have been a lot of terrific callers who've called in on this subject, I think CMHC would be far better not to hire Paul Kershaw and his group and pay him hundreds of thousands of dollars and listen to your show more often and listen to what people have to say.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I appreciate the plug, but I guess what I want to get at is, and Professor Kershaw says we don't tax wealth on homes the same way we tax other financial assets. We don't tax it the way we don't tax it the way we don't tax it at all. We don't primary residence, but we don't tax it the same way we tax income or capital gains or stock options or investment properties or anything like that. And they're saying you've made a lot of money, you've accumulated $1.5 trillion worth of housing wealth.
You don't get taxed
in primary residences.
You sell things. And if you sell your home and it's worth a lot of money and you invest in something else, you're going to get taxed on it.
Okay, maybe it's pie in the sky. They're just saying, the government could take all this money, maybe build more homes, make childcare more affordable, make post-secondary education more affordable, all these things that would help younger generations, make life a little easier for them, for people who have no hope of ever buying $1 million home.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, enjoying the discussion today on Talkback. Should baby boomers pay a little more by way of taxes on homes? Take a little less by way of OAS payments for affluent seniors to make life more fair and easier for the younger generations. Think about OAS, old age security. Case is being made again. It's been made before. Professor Ian Lee from Carleton University says OAS should be reformed, that it's becoming unaffordable. The actuary says it's not unsustainable, but there are those who think it's too generous. The threshold for the 100% clawback is too high, and as a result, the government is sending money to seniors who they don't need the money. And we have Professor Mike Moffat's research, the economist from University of or Western University in Ontario, in London. We have a situation now. A lot of men over the age of 65 are making more money than working age men now, between 25 and 35. So why are we sending any money to OAS to people who have combined household incomes, for example, of $185,000, to people who have that sort of income at that age, $175,000, probably paid off the home by now? Do they need a few $100s a month in OAS or whatever it is? Lower the threshold, they say. Don't send them any money. Lower that cutoff to something like $100,000 or $85,000. Not $185,000. Too generous. And it is a growing expense for all taxpayers, old age security. The chief actuary has pointed out the growing cost to fund old age security, which only comes from government revenues, not contributions like the CPP. $46 billion it costs in 2020. It's going to be $94 billion in 2035. And by 2060, $195 billion. $195 billion. And between the years 2030 and 2035, this country will spend 3% of its GDP on one social program. Old age security. So people are saying, change that program. If you're going to make one change, stop sending money to people who don't need the money, namely seniors making $185,000 a year. Stop doing that. You'll save billions of dollars a year that would be better spent elsewhere. Maybe lifting low-income seniors out of poverty. Cheryl in Calgary. Cheryl, thanks for calling, Cheryl.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome, Cheryl.
I've been sitting here listening to everybody, and Calgary's really up in the air against this, but I have to say that I'm a boomer. I've worked with millennials for 20 years, and they don't have the appreciation for having a job. They don't care if they book off. I worked 3 to 5 jobs to get my house, and these guys some of them just don't care if they work. My kids, I've got one that works their butt off and the other two that just kind of mediocre work. They don't have that earning to get far. And it breaks my heart because I struggled to the bones to get what I have.
Where do you think that comes from? If that's the case.
My dad, I think.
Okay. All right.
My dad, he drove a gravel truck here in Calgary. He would get paid $7 a load. So when I had my daughter, I had some sand brought in, and it cost me $40 for a yard of sand, and he damn near had a heart attack.
Right.
And he worked hard.
What I'm asking is, if this exists, what you're describing as a lackadaisical work ethic for young people, where does that come from?
I don't know. It's like they don't have that to get far. They do the minimal that they have to do. And I worked at a place where there was hundreds of kids working, and you could be guaranteed, even on a holiday, that you would have a ton of book-offs because they went drinking the night before. They didn't care if they were leaving you for your shift. And I couldn't believe it. It's just the work ethic is not there. I don't care. And I could sit back and watch. I wasn't management or anything, and thank goodness I wasn't. And maybe because I worked hard, then my kids usually work hard.
But what you're saying is, if it is so much tougher for the younger generations now, it's because the younger generations just don't know what a difficult life is or how to get through it.
They don't see that gold pot at the end of the rainbow. Yeah, I bought my house for $100,000. Yeah, it's worth $400 now. It's like they're waiting for me to croak so they can have my house. It's really sad the way they look at things.
Okay, I'll throw it out there as a point of discussion. I've heard it about millennials. I've heard it about Gen Z. Now they have come after the millennials, so they don't have the same work ethic the previous generations had, more interested in burying their heads in phones, don't know how to put in an honest day's work. They have unrealistic expectations, come out of school, expect to rise through the ranks, don't know how to pay their dues, all of this stuff. I don't know how much truth there is to it.
It's sad.
It's not my
really
experience.
Is sad.
Okay, you insist that it's a problem. It's just, I don't know. It's not my own lived experience, I would say. I'm going to stop here. We'll take more of our calls as we make our way through Talkback today at 1-833-668-2577. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Nikki is up next on generational fairness today. Hello, Nikki.
Hi, how you?
Yeah, I'm good, Nikki.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Good.
What's your opinion?
When I got into my car at the beginning of your show today, and you had talked about how the seniors are making more than the 20-something-year-olds right now, which I think should be looked at differently. Why are they only making that much when, 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, they were making
You could
the
look
same
at it that
amount.
way.
So
It's a good way to be a good way to look at it. Yeah.
that's
a good point.
ridiculous. And then at the same time, the boomers or whatever, these are the ones that were told and taught to start doing RSPs and stuff, and they had pensions. We're running out of pensions now. Like, people aren't their unions, the safety net within the corporation isn't happening anymore, and that's lobbyist mindset where corporations are taking advantage, but their stockholders and their boards are making money fist over dollar. It's just ridiculous, and we're losing our middle ground. So the fact that people are arguing over boomers and this and that is ridiculous. To save some money on your primary home taxes, tax corporations. Let's stop voting like you're a billionaire. You're not. Vote for your children. And then there's no way that somebody who bought their house for $800,000 and now it's 1.2, which I'm in Calgary, so that's very common right now, should have to be taxed on that. They only, this and that. But secondary stuff, anything above and beyond, of course, that should be.
All right. What if they bought their house? Pardon me. I'll just interrupt here, okay? Make another point.
Sure.
What if they bought their house in the 1970s for not even $100,000 and now it's worth $1 million?
Okay. And the transfer of it to their children, the children live in it still, is a different story. Something has to happen, but it has to go on that amount of equity. It can't just be blanketed. Right? So what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that equity or whatever? You have to buy something new, right? It's not like they're going to go back and be able to buy 100,000, this and that. So I don't know. It's a slippery slope, but the government has all these formulas for everything else. I'm sure they can figure it out to make it more fair.
But you would rather look at things such as, and it's a great point that you make. Well, why aren't the wages keeping up where, I can buy a house now with 3 times an average salary? Is that because houses are so much more expensive, or is it because wages haven't kept up? Right? That's one way to look at it. And what is behind, say, the decline in the availability of retirement benefits, especially in the private sector? And maybe do something about that. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what you could do.
And the affluent seniors and the old age pension, of course, they shouldn't get money they don't need. And it could be like child benefits, it goes about how much money you make and everything. Of course, that high-end accountants can make you look like you make no money. But, there has to be more. People shouldn't be punished for their first home at all. Anything above and beyond, yes, tax that. That's,
okay.
In this day and age,
Gotcha.
You need to.
All right.
It's got to
Thank
be
you,
more.
Nikki.
We're losing our middle ground. We need to stop
losing
that.
our middle ground. Okay. Thank you. I got to run, Nikki. Thank you. I'm going to fit in another call here. Kris is up next. Hello, Kris.
Hey, Rob. Hope you're having a great
Kris.
day.
Yeah, everything's fine here, Kris. Yeah. What's your opinion, Kris?
Too. First of all, just some context for me. First of all, I'm a senior. I'm a low-income senior. I live off of CPP, OAS, and GIS. So if they make these changes for cutting back on giving out OAS and by the way, I rent, so none of that's going to affect me. So it'd be very easy to say, yeah, sure, whatever, go ahead, go for it, because it doesn't affect me. But a couple of comments. First of all, you mentioned that there are some seniors that make more money than some of the younger people. Well,
yes.
Duh. Like when I started working way back when, I didn't make a heck of a lot of money. I didn't start actually making a decent living where I could say I was living comfortably until I was in my late 30s or early 40s. So if you're 25 and you're expecting to be living high off the hog, I got sad news for you, fella.
Yeah, but would you not expect maybe by the age of, say, 34, 35, you would be doing better than a man who's 65 years old and supposed to be retired, living off pension income? Because the economist who compiled that data says this has never happened before in Canadian history, where men who are 65 and older are making more money, both median and average income, than men between the ages of 24 and 35. It's never happened before.
Sure. And those men that are 65 and making more money, they busted their ass for 40 or 50 years to get to that point. Okay? Second point I want to make. We always say, well, let's tax the rich. They need to pay their fair share. And nobody ever puts a number to what they think a fair share really is. Okay? So let me tell you, when I was working, and by the way, I said I started making decent money in my 40s. That's when I started working for government and later in my career consulting to government. That's where the money was for me, okay? But I have a lot of experience with government. Governments have an insatiable appetite for money, okay? So they'll start off and they'll say, well, we're going to drop it down from 185 to 150. Then they'll come back next year. They'll say, no, that's not enough. We need to drop it to 120. And on it goes. Meanwhile, we're running an $80 billion a year deficit, and we have a $1 trillion debt. And the government is like 48% is what people on average are paying for taxes in Canada. We have to live within our budget, supposedly. Well, maybe the government should live within theirs. If they can do that, and then they want to start putting out more taxes to make things more quote-unquote fair, I'm all for it. But all they'll do is they'll take more and more, and they'll run bigger and bigger deficits.
All right. Thank you. Point made. Point well made. Thank you, Kris. Be right back with more of your calls on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, let's go to Kitchener today and hear from Sarah. I'm making more of generational fairness today. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, how are you guys today?
Yeah, very good, Sarah. Thank you. What's your opinion?
So my opinion is that these people have counted on this money. It's very unfair to all of a sudden decide to take this money away. I think there's other places that you could take the money away from these people. I just feel that they've worked hard to get there. You know, back in the day, they were eating click and mashed potatoes and food like that, maybe pork chops. They weren't eating filet mignon, New York steaks. Today's generation, they're eating filet mignon, New York steaks, Wagyu, and then they want...
Really? Who can afford a New York strip right now? Who can afford that right now?
Well, they're not eating click, I'll tell you that.
Click? I don't even know what that is. Right? What is that? Click? What is that?
Click. Because you're not old
spam.
enough.
Okay.
Spam, click. You know, these people, they didn't eat like these kids eat today. These kids now, you know,
right.
the house that they want, every bedroom has to have a bathroom. They want, you know, back then there was one family bathroom. There was no powder room and a bathroom and a this or that. So the house back then that these guys bought were not a fabulous house. They were just a small house. And then you're going to tax them on this house that has become $1 million in today's world? That's not fair.
Not fair, but the house might be paid off. And there's the poor 20-something, and I doubt they're eating New York strip and filet mignon every night. And then they can't even dream of buying that first house at the original price, let alone $1 million.
They can if they eat Spam and they don't go out to movie theaters every night and they don't walk around.
Is that what young people are supposed to do? Like it's a life of click and Spam? Is that life? Is that life?
Well,
is that living?
That's the life that these people had to get to where they are. So if these kids want to get to where these old people are, they have to live the same lifestyle.
Okay. All right. I don't know. We did not grow up affluent by any means. We still weren't eating a lot of spam. I have to tell you that. I'm going to move along though, Sarah. Thank you for your call. I think we have time for one more. Paul in Calgary. Hello, Paul.
Hey.
Spam. Paul, you eat a lot of spam growing up, Paul?
Oh, yeah. We used to put two cans of spam in a pot, cover it with ketchup, throw it in the oven, and call it meatballs.
Oh, gosh.
I just had a few points to make.
Very quickly.
The first one is that I'm a boomer, but I have disposable income, and the money that I get, I spend, and that's to the benefit of the economy and jobs for young people and so on. And if you take disposable income away, then I don't spend it. And for that money that I don't spend before I die, that's going to go to the children and grandchildren. So the whole thing could backfire because the young people are the ones that are actually going to get less.
Get less. Right? All right. That's an interesting point. Thank you, Paul. They're playing the music. Brand new topic tomorrow and more of your calls. Until then, always the latest breaking news around the clock right here on News Radio